Apes strong together. This is Dale. I'm here to do the review of War the Planet of the Apes. I'm also here to talk about the HBO documentary series called The Defiant one. Let's get into it. I think this might be the best trilogy of movies. There's been some great trilogies. You know, you had the Star Wars trilogy, the first three Star Wars movies, you know, New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. You had the Lord of the Rings. You had the Christopher Nolan Batman series with Christian Bale as Batman. Outside of Lord of the Rings, this might be the best because every movie is from very good to great. You know, I know Star Wars fans gonna say that's blasphemy. How can you put that over Star Wars? But I never thought New Hope was a great movie. I thought it was okay. Even as a little kid, it didn't blow me away. I didn't really get totally on board with Star Wars until Empire Strikes Back. That movie made me a fan of Star Wars in general. You also had the Captain America. You could say that's a trilogy in itself, you know, with the first Avenger, Captain America movie. Then you had the Winter Soldier. Then you had Civil War. I might have to put this even over Lord of the Rings, and I like Lord of the Rings. This new version of Planet of the Apes, the War of the Planet of the Apes, I think is the best out of the three movies. The CGI, the motion caption, just gets better and better with each movie. They really do a good job, and I thought the special effects was phenomenal in the first Rise of the Planet of the Apes movie. This is not. You could say this is the prequel to the late 1960s and early 1970s movies, Planet of the Apes movies with Charlton Heston, but this stands on its own. And I was saying before I seen this movie that Baby Driver was my second favorite movie of the year, but this movie I think has taken its spot. This is an awesome movie, phenomenal movie. It's not an all-out battle between apes and humans. And by the way, I'm always rooting for the apes. I have little to no faith in humans, so I've been rooting for the apes since the first movie, Rise of the Apes. It's more complex than that. It's not an all-out battle between apes and humans to see who's going to take over the planet, who's going to run the planet. It's deeper than that. It's much deeper than I expected to be. It made me think of America's history, you know, with the Europeans and the Native Americans, you know, and also African Americans and Europeans. And all through, you know, it made me think of slavery in those certain times in history. It really had me thinking. It's a good movie. It's a serious movie, but there is some comic relief. They have this new ape character that they introduced in this movie that wasn't in the previous two, and he's very funny. He gives it the little light moments, and it's not forced. Matt Reeves did a great job directing this movie. He also did the second Planet of the Apes, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and he's also, for now, you know, things can change, he's also up to do the solo Batman movie. So I highly recommend it. This is an A+ movie. Can't really recommend it enough. And if you haven't seen the first two Apes movies, Rise of the Planet of the Apes and Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I recommend you check them out too. Also, I want to talk about the Defiant ones. This is a HBO documentary series, I think 4 parts, talking about the life of Dr. Dre and Jimmy Iovine. And they came together, and if you don't know who Jimmy Iovine is, he's the one that partnered up with Dr. Dre, and they came up with the idea for Beats, earphones. And I believe this documentary came about, and what prompted them to make this documentary is because, you know, they sold Beats, you know, the earphones to Apple, and they made a ton of money. It might have made Dr. Dre the first billionaire rapper or hip hop artist, you could say. At first, the first episode is going to seem a little jarring to those who might be on one side of the coin. For those who are, you know, who really love rock and roll and could care less about hip hop, and vice versa to the ones that are hip hop heads that love hip hop, they can care less about rock and roll. It's going to seem a little disjointed at first because it's telling two different stories, telling Jimmy Iovine and telling Dr. Dre's story. And at that point in their lives, they was in two different worlds. Jimmy Iovine was living in Brooklyn, New York, and, you know, Dr. Dre's from Compton, California, and they was in two different lanes musically. You know, Jimmy Iovine was on the rock and roll side, and of course Dr. Dre is on the hip hop side. And it's going to start to make sense as the series goes on, because you're going to see they world slowly coming together. And Jimmy Iovine ended up owning the record company that used to distribute Death Row Records, that did the distribution for Death Row. So that's how Jimmy Iovine, I don't want to tell him, I'm spoiling it, but that's how they came together. So, and it's a very insightful documentary. Is Dr. Dre always came off to me as a very private person. So you get get a look behind the curtain into his life. It's more insightful than Straight Outta Compton movie. And I like the Straight Outta Compton movie. But they even go into the physical abuse he inflicted on D Bonds at a club, which got criticized, which Straight Outta Compton got criticized for not even talking about it. They even interviewed D Bonds. They interviewed Dr. Dre's wife. She talks about how her family didn't even want her to get involved with Dr. Dre. They got interviews with Bruce Springsteen, Tom Petty, Stevie Nicks, P. Diddy, Nas, Snoop. Snoop got the funniest interviews. Bono from U2, Ice Cube, Eminem, you name it. Many record executives. Interscope, they signed Tupac 5 years before he was even on Death Row. So they go into a lot about Tupac's life too. They signed Marilyn Manson, they signed 9 Inch Nails, they signed No Doubt, Black Eyed Peas. So they sold a lot of records through the 90s and probably could say early to mid 2000s. They talk about how Dr. Dre and Eminem hooked up. So it's a very insightful documentary. I highly recommend it. I don't even think you got to be really into music as much as I am to enjoy it. So there you have it.